people. So we're going to talk about explaining what you do. And so we're going to have a field test first, right? So here's the situation. Seminar here. It's not your department, so it's not here. And the seminar has just concluded, and you're strike up a conversation with another person. And after a few minutes of exchanging comments about the seminar, she asks you, what do you do? You say,
context is that 10 seconds or 30 seconds?
you're just about there. You're finished.
Try to understand why.
Okay. So now that you've been put in that awkward position, you're stammering a little bit, you're not sure what to say to this person. I don't think you really imagined carefully enough you didn't transport yourself into that seminar situation, sort of this room, and you're just chatting and informally. You might have said more. You just have to. Given the situation, though, you might have even said less or focused on different parts. But the point is that that simple explanation happens frequently, and it's a small but I think important professional activity. I was recently at a conference this week in Washington, D.C., and I suspect at that meeting probably 4 or 5 times a day somebody was asking. Maybe not in those few words, but basically either it was, what do you do? Or in some cases they knew me, what are you up to? Slight difference in English, but it's important. And so it's really important to be able to answer that in 15 seconds because this is probably the only time you're going to get people's complete attention. And so you shouldn't waste it. And somehow, well, this is my feeling, is that you need to convey that whatever you do with in a way that's clear, yet also I think it should be enthusiastic. And I guess I realized also if you can't explain what you do, you can't explain it well. You might also wonder, well, I wonder how well you do your job in any event. So, or whatever you're doing. So why is it difficult to explain what you do? I have to pass these around. I'm sorry. Here, these are all partly because there's so many ways to go about it. So you said. You started with your PhD, your postdoc, right?
PhD candidate.
Candidate,
yeah.
All right. So you started with your position title, or your position first. Oh, did you introduce each other yet? Oh, okay. So what did you say? How did you?
I started with my
title. What about your affiliation? Said you didn't say where?
Because I'm affiliated.
Right. And then both of you did a great job of going in and actually describing what you're studying or researching. But sometimes people don't get to that. Oh, it's interesting in Japan, the way you do an introduction, whether it's a speech or whether it's on the telephone or anything else, you'll start with your company or institution name and then your personal name. So if I call somebody on the phone, I would say, Kochira wa California Daigaku no Maya desu, which means this is University of California Meyer speaking. And that's the way you would introduce yourself at the beginning of a talk, or any place else, or when you're giving your card, you would start with your institution first. It's just, that's like your first name. We don't quite do that. I mean, we're not so linked to our name. So then since it's turning, help. Let's see. Excuse me. So I thought, in my case, I realized it's really difficult to explain what I do, and it was just exactly what, as you were describing, that there is the problem that you have multiple institutions, because I have 4 business cards. And I should have put them all down there on the side so you could see. And what am I trying to explain? Well, am I a scientist? Am I a professor? Am I a leader of a research group? Or am I an editor, founder of a magazine? It's not clear. But I certainly can't say all of them, or I'm going to put somebody to sleep. And then I've got at least 3 separate affiliations. And each one is very different. Lawrence Berkeley National Laboratory, University of California, Davis, Home Energy Magazine, and sometimes I'm a consultant. And then my activities, if I wanted to go through those activities, I could start with saying I study energy consumption in buildings, appliances, transportation, or I spend my time supervising people, or I teach, or I talk about the fact that I head a nonprofit. And so it's like a smorgasbord. Where do I begin? Somehow I have to choose from all of those and provide something that I can finish in 15 seconds. And I never succeed. I am the worst person in introductions. This is the reason I don't make a good selection necessarily of all of those topics to introduce myself. However, let's keep looking and see what I should do, or you should do, in trying to figure out what to say given all those alternatives. And so, when you meet somebody and they ask you what you do, the first thing you should do is try to understand who the person you're talking to is. And the most important solution to that is to take the initiative and ask them what they do before they get around to asking you, because then you can calibrate your explanation of who you are to what they something that may be interesting to them. So you can find out, are they in your field? So why are you two, for example, why do you two know each other? Okay, so that's a start. And so at some point, you actually did do an explanation of who you are, right? And what you do. Yes, in the context of the sports field. Something like that.
I think we started right here. Same as.
Okay. And so the advantage of trying to turn the tables or take the initiative and asking the other person first what they do is then you can be much more strategic in what you're going to tell them. And most important, you can find out whether this conversation is worth pursuing. That's a very crass sort of thing to say, I suppose. But very often people ask, "What do you do as a?" They're just being polite. And so that's the toughest one to decide whether you want to devote the time to, sincerely explaining what they're doing and what you're doing, and whether you can find some basis for conversation. I don't know if you've ever been in that situation. That's usually a party. Oh, what do you do? And you start explaining it. Their eyes are already over there at another person. At least that happens to me all the time. And I just maybe there's some food in my teeth or something like that. Or
Like,
more
do
interested
you
in
have
somebody
some,
else.
Some hints or so? I mean, besides what's obvious, like at conferences, talking to somebody who's maybe very well established,
Yeah.
and to know like if it's, yeah.
You'd be surprised, or at least maybe I'm not very interesting to people or something. But I get a lot of people who are asking, who are already moving on to the next person. They want the short answer, yeah. So,
I try to.
yeah. But if you have this if you've already asked them what they do, then you might be able to take from your menu of items that you do or what you could say in terms of position, affiliation, activities, and so on, and deliver it to them in a way discussion. But then there's the another kind of assessment, such as English fluency, and are they from California? Are they from UC Davis? Are they from the United States? Where are they from? And these sorts of things, just to get a sense of how do you talk to them. And that may actually be even the body language. How close should you be? Because Americans like to stand further apart. Americans generally stay further apart. I was going to say that,
And,
but
Arabic people, and yeah, are more closer. We are more standing apart, I think. Yeah.
yes. So, and of course, you asked the question, how long do we have to talk? So, is it in an elevator? You can count the floors and know that you've got six floors to explain. And we'll do elevator pitches later. But is it a kind of is it some sort of mixer where, for one reason or another, you're in a room where the goal is to meet other people? And so, but my feeling is after 15 seconds or so, which is actually a long time to talk, many people will lose interest. And then the question is, do you have a goal in mind? As you are explaining what you do, there may be some reason that you want to talk to this person. And you already know something about what they do. That's often the case of a speaker, or something. You've already done some research or have additional information, so that you have asymmetrical information. So the other aspects are fairly clear. You want to calibrate your explanation of what you do to the knowledge of the questioner. So part of that is the language you use, but also it's the context again. Well, are you at a grocery store? Are you talking to other graduate students? Who knows? But you really got to think a little bit about. You don't want to speak over them, but you don't want to speak under them. And then there's decide what's important. And again, that you've got your menu of things that you could talk about, but yet you've got to somehow give a quick overview, and then maybe go to that common ground. You're smiling because you remembered something.
Yeah, if the person's looking elsewhere, then stop.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's very important. To don't just continue going on trying to finish your your spiel if they're they're not interested. I would say that's one of my chief failings too. So then the other question is, or concern is, making sure you choose the words that are familiar and that they will understand it, and that's especially true for foreigners, and because Americans just have no conception of how it is to speak English to foreigners. Probably still get confused.
Especially when you have a time constraint.
Yes. Yes, and so some of the tips that I could come up with was just avoid acronyms, unless you know, again, in the context. So can you use EPA? Well, probably most people know what the EPA is, but what about ARB? Do you know what ARB is? What? RB. Do you know what ARB is? California Air Resources Board. No, I just made that up. Yeah, but you saw that up there. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. But if we were in Europe, if you said the EU, you would know what the EU is. But I don't know. Would you? Do you know what the EU is? But do you know what a DG is?
It's the department. The European Commission is divided into DGs.
Yes.
Directorate General.
Yes, that's correct. And I
very bureaucratic.
it is very bureaucratic.
I'm not sure that you.
And the English they use in the European Commission is different than the American that we use. And I have an example that I don't have here, but where I took a sentence, I wrote a sentence, and it actually means something completely different in English and American, in Euro English and American. Completely different. In some cases, opposite. And so you really need to be sensitive to that. Yeah.
I forget.
So do you know what a standard is? Yeah.
Yeah, here you use it like for regulatory standards for vehicle emissions, for instance.
Yes.
Yeah.
But in Europe, a standard is really what we would call in English a test method or a test procedure. So in parliamentary procedure, if you use if you're in Europe, to table a motion means to put it forward. In American language, it means to withdraw it. So it's the exact opposite.
I'm wondering, transport mode, is it? Because I used it and I was not sure if it's a professional word or not. Transport mode?
Sort of in the middle. You can infer it, I think, fairly. So yeah, so there's kinds of categories of acronyms that are state-specific, country-specific, and obviously profession-specific. And you need to know whether can you use them in a discussion. Some people would say, I work for the I work in California, and my job is to liaise between the CEC and the ARB. What does that mean to somebody who's outside of California? They don't know what to say.
Explain what the California is.
Exactly. Yeah. And what is a what is a independent system operator? In general, most people don't know what that is. You don't?
No.
No?
Say they
I've forgotten the European word now, but it's usually called the system operator. It's the but it's not the lower company. It's the operator of the entire network. It's the
Distributor.
Yeah, I've
Netzwerkbetreiber.
Good. So then since you only have a little bit of time to deliver something, you should avoid these empty terms. Some of the empty terms that really say nothing, I think, are analysis, evaluation, data. Maybe all of these depend a little bit on context, but I think it's more important to describe the fact that you're either doing methods such as field measurements, simulations, or lab studies. But at least that, when I hear that, I immediately start thinking about what people are doing and do I have connections to it. It's a way of having those concrete connections that are a good starting place. And because we're in energy and environment, and nobody knows what energy and environment is, they need to have often some further connections to conventional disciplines. So that's why I suggest economics, geochemistry, I don't know, anthropology. What is your degree in? So you might say, I'm an economist who studies transportation.
Transport economist, it's not.
You could say that, you could, but
that gets too complicated.
But you could say, but I don't. But you really want to get to specifically what you're studying, which is the evolution of transportation modes, choice of modes, and then there's that famous problem about maintaining eye contact. You'd notice it immediately. So, a large conference, you're standing in a long line for the buffet lunch. You strike up a conversation with the person next to you, perhaps by complaining about the long lines. And you always want to be positive. It's probably not a good thing to complain first thing. Although, you never know. And then she asks you what you do. So what's the context?
You cannot get away. Like once you started, you cannot.
Yeah, you cannot escape. It's a conference, though. So you're all in probably the same general field, but it's a big one. So probably you might not have been in the same panel or same sessions or something like that. So that tells you sort of the level of knowledge. Time, you know how much time you have. So what might you say in this case? Would you say something different? Wouldn't go any further than that. Good. Aha. Yeah, that's sometimes you want to put a teaser in there. Like, or like, again, it depends upon the conference. You were at our conference 2 weeks ago. You probably did this several times. You didn't try to say, and you're studying, and I'm focusing on. Right, so you better get through that quickly and get to something more. Exactly. I mean, it's sort of self-evident. We're at UC Davis, and you've the students have already been almost introduced. So you better come up with another line saying, and what would you do? What would you say?
Similar to
Yeah, very good.
I would say, okay, I would also start maybe with my affiliation, but more saying I'm at TU Vienna, but now I'm doing research with the UC Davis professor in California, and then I would also go more saying I'm looking into the factors that go into the decision whether people start or stop bicycling over the lifetime. More concrete, maybe focusing on one topic.
And you could begin to use some technical terms. Mode transition, mode choice in get away with putting one or two more technical terms describing your. Okay, we're at the we're in the line over the queue, and we're waiting for the food, and she asks you. Remember the conference? It's something maybe on transportation planning or something like that, or urban planning. What kind of conference would you be at? What's the next conference you're attending?
I'm thinking now going to the
All right.
So,
So everybody's there on travel behavior. So
Right.
implicitly, mode choice is that's almost a given.
yeah.
So
More focused then on the method.
surveying,
Analysis,
and you're
yes.
surveying.
No, I'm
uh,
analyzing interviews, but then analyzing. Yeah, but
So in that case, yeah, you have to choose the right verbs there. You're seeking to understand that. There's nothing wrong with that. Or you're just studying underlying factors to causing mode choice for bicycles. Or
if life course events drive change.
not going to mention bicycles.
Or or bicycling.
Well, you need to be careful because if by saying bicycling, you may actually turn off a certain group of people that you want to speak to. There will be the economists who are more concerned about automobiles or public transportation or something who have no interest in bicycles. But you are instead interested in you may be interested in the in other modes, yes. And so,
the interaction
so are you
modes,
are you going to transfer some of the analysis, or some of the methods and the experience in doing the surveys or something from other modes to bicycles? I don't know. It just depends. Are you a minority? Is the whole bicycle area being sort of looked down upon?
Share in transportation as a whole, I think, more general first to not.
Yeah, by talking about cycling, you've sort of put yourself in a little minority or something, whereas you might want to still keep yourself in the. Better late than never. Give her one. Yeah. Okay, so so want to explain what you do? Oh, here, let's go right. Wait. Let's put you right back here, just like everybody else. Here you are. You're at a seminar at UC Davis. It's over. And it's a seminar, but not in your department. And the seminar has just concluded. Standing around talking, maybe finishing off the cookies, and strike up a conversation with somebody else. Talked about the speaker and how you may or may not have disagreed with what he said, and at some point the other person asks you, so what do you do? That was pretty good. So you can look at all this later. So it's all right. A lot of this can you can read later. So we're at the very end. Then we just were pointing out that there is one thing that you have several parts of your of what you do. Your position, title, your affiliation. I shouldn't use mine there. Your affiliation or your actual activities, and you'd covered all of those. So good. And somehow you need to do that in 15 seconds, and I think it was about. All right. So now we're really at the end, believe it or not. And just a reminder, what's the context? Always think about that. That's why I was trying to establish a setting, so you evaluate who's likely in that line in the buffet, or in that room when you're talking, and their familiarity, but also how much time. And if it's in the case of the buffet line, like you said, they're a prisoner for a little while, so you might have to. But that's both a benefit and a drawback. But you should be able to decide by the end of that that waiting in the queue and getting your lunch. Well, maybe I know enough about this person, and we've established enough rapport. So I should go out there and propose we have lunch together, share a table, and that's really what you want to do. You've just done everything to establish that.